So with League Classic set to make its way to live servers on July 29th, let's get you guys set up with a predictive tier list for every single role. We're going to follow the same kind of format as our usual tier lists, where we place champions in tiers ranging from OP as the best down to C tier as the worst, and then with B, A, and S in between. And for a quick disclaimer, by no means is this tier list going to be 100% accurate. We have no data to go off of at all, so this tier list is going to be entirely based on what we have experienced from playing on the PvE and what we can remember from playing back in Season 3. So definitely let us know if you guys have been playing anything that seems OP or that you think needs an addition to the tier list, and we'll be sure to take stuff into consideration if we end up making an updated version. So with that being said, let's get right into it. He has been waiting years for Classic. He's never stopped playing it in his head, and for the past month, he's been on the PvE 12 hours a day, waiting to prey on you. You can't avoid him, but you can be ready. With SkillCapped's Classic launch course, built by challenger coaches who played Classic the first time around, and have put countless hours into the PvE, packing all that knowledge into a single course designed to save you time and get you straight into the fun. It starts with a dedicated guide for every role, with the changes, tricks, and strategies you need to win with your chosen lane or dominate in the jungle. The old wave control mechanics you could completely abuse to build massive CS leads and permanent freezes. The hidden trading and laning rules that 99% of players have absolutely no idea about. Plus, everything you would ever need to know about vision and macro so you can learn how to close out games quickly. We've even gone as far as to create an entire video on runes and itemization, teaching you the simple rules you need to always have the most optimal build, whatever your champion. So whether you're looking to get ahead from day one or you just want a no-fluff guide to everything that matters, check it all out today using the exclusive discount in the description or pinned comment below. We'll start off with the top lane tier list, and up in the OP tier is going to be Tryndamere. The one thing you will notice about most of the OP and S tier champs is that they are either really good in the split push or they have incredible lane bully capabilities. Something that is drastically different in League Classic compared to Season 16 League is that towers are way easier to knock down. There are no turret plates, and turrets do not gain bonus resist based on how many champs are attacking it, so you can melt towers a lot faster than in current League. You also don't get home guards when walking out of base, so this means that dying in lane can be a lot more punishing, as you're more likely to miss minion waves that are crashing under your tower. There also aren't as many comeback mechanics in League Classic, as objective bounties aren't a thing, so snowballing is a lot more prevalent. Base health and base mana are also a lot lower in League Classic. For instance, Teemo at level 1 with the Doran's Ring in League Classic has 522 health and 240 mana, but in Season 16 League, he has 715 health and 334 mana. Jax at level 1 with the Doran's Blade in League Classic has 619 health and 265 mana, but in Season 16 League, he's got 740 health and 339 mana. So basically what we're trying to say here is that the early game can be a lot more rewarding and a lot more punishing. With all this in mind, this sets up the top lane meta to be favored towards champions who can either do well in lane or who possess strong side lane strength. Tryndamere is in the OP tier because his ability to crit early in lane is absolutely nuts when someone like Teemo has just 522 health. The fact that Tryndamere isn't mana constrained either is a big win, considering most champs that run on mana in League Classic have much smaller mana pools. And then you can even take crit in runes and masteries in League Classic, so this just bodes extremely well for Trynd. Vayne, Gragas, and Pantheon are three champs in specific we think will be quite strong because they have the ability to lane well into the majority of the top lane class. Mundo, Jax, Tryndamere, and Nasus should all be really good solo carry top laners, to where if you get ahead, then you just spam split and destroy the enemy's base. We are a bit more worried about Nasus's early game being even more exploitable in League Classic though, so that's why he's a tier lower. The League Classic version of Heimerdinger is just an all-around worse version of the Heimer from the current game. For instance, you only get to place down one turret at level 1, and you can't even have more than 2 turrets down at the same time. His E takes so long to travel through the air and actually land, so it's really difficult to hit the stun. So you're basically a sitting duck in lane if the enemy is able to take down the one turret that you're able to place in the early levels. Garen is another champ we don't think is going to be very good for League Classic, as his kit is similar to Heimer's in the sense that it's just a much weaker version than in Season 16 League. Garen's passive and R are much weaker in League Classic. Garen's R deals magic damage in League Classic and not true damage, so it's way easier to counter with a bit of magic resist. We also have Gangplank down in the B tier, as he has lost pretty much all of his lane bully potential that the Season 16 version of Gangplank has. No barrels on Classic GP, so you don't have any zone tool in lane. Q damage is completely non-existent early game, so you are extremely reliant on farming and scaling up to be somewhat effective. With champs like Olaf, Tryndamere, and Jax able to easily get on top of GP and beat him early on, we just can't see him being a very strong and reliable top lane champ. With so many of the top lane champs champs being melee, we think Vayne, Ryze, and Teemo are going to be really strong picks. Playing these ranged tops into stuff like Garen, Nasus, Sion, Olaf, Singed, Cho'Gath, Warwick, and Gangplank, who all lack any sort of gap closer, will allow you to have such a free laning phase. We don't see any Aurelia, Riven, Fiora, or Yone who have a lot more threat into ranged tops because of their mobility, so as if ranged tops weren't already annoying in current League, they should be even more OP in League Classic. So when it comes to the jungle meta in League Classic, it's going to be completely different than how League is today. In today's era of League, almost any champion in the game can muster up a full clear without dying in the process, but unless you're a champion specifically designed to jungle, then you will not be able to jungle in League Classic. One champ who's a good example of this is Dr. Mundo. We've got Mundo on the jungle tier list because we suspect people are going to want to try him in the role, but we would definitely advise otherwise. The issue with Mundo jungle is that his clear is incredibly unhealthy. You literally run through all 5 of your potions and still don't end up having enough health to full clear. Nidalee is another champ who is a jungler in current day's League, but who cannot jungle in League Classic. With League Classic Nidalee, you don't actually unlock your Cougar form until level 6, so you have no AoE damage to help clear your camps, and you'll just straight up die to jungle camps if you try Nidalee jungle. So it's really vital that your champion can actually clear without dying, and the champs who can clear fast and also stay healthy are going to be the most viable in League Classic. So don't go trying Ezreal or Twitch as a jungler in League Classic because you quite literally will not be able to clear your camps without dying. Warwick is one of those champs who doesn't have any issues staying healthy during his clear because of the heal from his Q. The only issue with Warwick is that he doesn't have any AoE damage, so his clear speed isn't the best relative to some of the other jungle picks. With Warwick, you are just looking to AFK farm through and stack your feral flare, so not being able to gank early isn't the end of the world for him when he gets to come online super hard in the mid game. Junglers who can both clear quite well and also gank effectively early game are who should outshine the rest. For this reason, we have Lee Sin and Evelynn up in the OP tier. The version of Evelynn in League Classic is absolutely nuts because not only is her clear quite quick because of the AoE damage from her Q, but she also gets stealth straight from level 1 due to her passive. Evelynn's stealth is built into her passive, so you don't need to hit level 6 to unlock it. This just makes the early gank threat of Evelynn extremely potent and impossible for enemies to ward against. Lee is kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to junglers in League Classic. He clears well, skirmishes well, has great early ganks, and can invade, which leads us to our next key point that you should pay attention to. Invading is super punishing in League Classic, because if you end up taking the enemy jungler's camp and you leave one small minion alive in that camp, the camp will not respawn again until the enemy jungler kills the small minion. So if you're able to invade the enemy jungler early on, kill them, and also take their camps, you will have a monstrous advantage relative to the current version of League, especially if you are playing against a jungler who has a really crappy skirmish early on, say for example Rammus, and you're playing someone like Lee Sin or Olaf. Your game plan should be to invade him early on. The Olaf jungle is one we think is super strong in League Classic because of the fact that it has a really healthy and fast clear, and it skirmishes very well in the early game. You can finish your full clear before the majority of other junglers, so if they are still clearing, or if they decide to try for an early gank instead of full clearing, you can punish that really hard with Olaf. So the general theme to our jungle tier list is that champs who have better early game skirmishes are higher up, while champs who lack that early game impact are lower down. Exceptions being Master Yi and Warwick, who are more so hard farmers, as they just scale insanely well into the mid game compared to all other junglers. So even if you don't have incredible impact early on, they can still come online really hard by farming efficiently. So for the mid lane tier list in League Classic, there are a ton of champs who you don't see at all played in the mid lane in the current state of League who are phenomenal mid laners in League Classic. A few of these champs include Gragas, Corki, Nidalee, and Master Yi. AP Gragas is absolutely nuts in League Classic because his Q range is 2 screens wide, and his ability to burst with Q and R is insane once he has a few items. You get to sit back and toss Q out for poke from range, which is nearly impossible for enemies to dodge. Corki is a really strong mid laner because his Q is an instant nuke that doesn't have a cast time, which makes it super reliable to hit in lane. His R hits a lot harder too, and Trinity Force Spike is even more insane in League Classic than it is in current League. Towers also drop a lot quicker in League Classic, so champs who can build Trinity Force and get that Sheen proc are going to be able to close out games way faster. Corki is also a really good answer to Kassadin, as you can bully him out of lane early on very easily, so if Kassadin somehow slips through the ban phase, then pulling out Corki as a counter can work great. On the topic of Kassadin, the champ scales like a complete monster in League Classic. You can literally one-shot squishy champions with your R if you have a few items, and he also has the silence on his Q, so there is next to no counterplay to a fed Kassadin in the late game. You have to be able to shut Kassadin down early on if you want any chance of winning against him, so that's why we like the Corki pick in response. Ahri is one of the best mid laners in League Classic because there isn't actually a ton of mobility in the game, which makes someone like Ahri, who has the dashes on her R, a lot more valuable. When you look at the class of mid lane champs in League Classic, we're really lacking those highly mobile melee mids. There's no Zed, Locke, Akali, Fizz, Irelia, Yasuo, Yone, or LeBlanc, so it really allows Ahri to separate herself from the rest of the pack in terms of what she's able to bring. Ahri, Katarina, and Kassadin are the only champs who have considerably high mobility, so we think that factor alone gives them a huge edge up over most mid laners and their ability to make things happen. Ahri in League Classic actually feels like a true assassin as well. If you missed being able to one-shot squishies with a full rotation of spells, then you're going to be loving this Ahri with the item Deathfire Grasp. Mid lane Nidalee is a champ you're going to want to try if you enjoy those poke-style mids like Xerath or Vel'Koz. Nidalee's spears absolutely chunk in League Classic, as hitting a max range spear is going to take the majority of a squishy's health bar. The only issue with Nidalee mid is that she lacks any sort of early game agency. Her spear is really hard to hit in lane, and she doesn't get Cougar form until level 6, so you have no pre-6 wave clear and are susceptible to getting shoved in and out-roamed by the enemy mid. Because of how nasty the spears can chunk in the mid game, we were debating putting Nidalee in the S tier, but we just can't due to the fact that she's less reliable early on. The Master Yi mid is one where we aren't entirely sure on his ranking right now, but we're placing him in the S tier. Late game AP Master Yi is completely nuts, as his Q shreds and his W heals him back from nothing to full health. The only issue with AP Yi is that his early game prior to reaching his core items is weaker. The champ is also very susceptible to CC, and because it's Leona, Blitz, and Alistar as the main melee engaged supports that most people are likely going to be picking, they have very reliable ways to CC him in fights. So we definitely don't think he's on the same kind of OP level as Kassadin and Gragas, but he should end up as one of the better picks. The League Classic version of Twisted Fate has even more map impact than the current version, as you have access to your global ult straight from level 1. The teleport is on TF's E instead of his R, so this gives him the ability to completely sway a game in the first few minutes. With towers dropping so fast in League Classic, games can end fast if a split push top laner gets fed, so a really OP strategy on Twisted Fate is to try and get that top laner ahead, and they will just run away with the game. A combo we expect to be really broken if you are playing duo is Tryndamere top and Twisted Fate mid. Trynd has plenty of early damage to follow up on early TF roams, and if you lock the enemy down with a gold card after porting in, then you're simply getting a kill every single time. And then that Tryndamere is going to be a level up on his opponent, which means he gets 6 first and just dives the enemy when he has his R first. One mid lane champ who we don't expect to be top tier by any means, but who is something well worth trying is AP Tristana. AP Tristana with Deathfire Grasp can hit super hard because her abilities have really good AP ratios. You play her like a true assassin, where you're trying to dive in and one-shot a squishy champ. You do really need your R to be able to 100 to 0 squishies though, so because of this, she's not super reliable, especially relative to someone like Kassadin, who can just one-shot on repeat with his low cooldown R. Soraka mid is another more annoying cheese pick that you can play, as her Q is point and click, so it's impossible to dodge, and you just spam it out for wave clear and poke. You definitely are more of a support though when playing Soraka mid, so when it comes down to solo carrying games, she's not going to be the best, which is why we have her in the B tier. Lulu is probably going to be the best enchanter that you can play in the mid lane in League Classic. Her Q in League Classic does not deal less damage when it travels through minions, so you can wave clear a lot better and poke way better in lane. The poke power from Lulu E into Q is so brain dead and should make her a great answer to the majority of melee mids. It's champs with these really high impact spells who we think should shine the most, so Ahri, Twisted Fate, and Kassadin especially are 3 we are pretty optimistic land in great spots. For the bot lane meta in League Classic, who knows what kind of things people are going to come up with, but for now, we are going to keep things simple for our first tier list and only place traditional ADCs. No mages, so this means there aren't actually a whole lot to choose from, being that there's only 9 ADCs that are in League Classic. So there are 3 champs in specific we expect to be outliers above all else, and they are Vayne, Ezreal, and Corki. Trinity Force Spike is so massive in League Classic, and both Corki and Ezreal get to take full advantage of that. With Ezreal, you can even build Iceborne Gauntlet on him again, and this makes his build versatility great, as you can adapt to the enemy comps super well. Into teams who lack mobility, you can grab Iceborne Gauntlet and just perma-slow them with Q. The slow from Gauntlet in League Classic does not get reduced for range characters, so it's a 30% slow for 2 seconds on every single Q you land. In regards to Vayne, she has her Blade of the Ruined King spike, which is really powerful, and then her ability to kite around and peel for herself is super nice, because when you look at the entire class of ADCs that you can choose from, Vayne and Ezreal are the only ones who can reliably kite around and be more self-sufficient. So in terms of solo carry power from the ADC role in League Classic, we do think Vayne and and Ezreal should provide the highest ceilings. After the big three, we do think Twitch and Kog'Maw will be two of the next best ADCs, as the lesser amount of mobility in League Classic should bode well for the hyper carries who lack gap closer. Twitch has a bit of a weaker early game, but he is by far the best scaling ADC in League Classic, as that fantasy of popping out of stealth and being able to 1v5 a fight is a real thing again. If you're playing against a squishy enemy comp and you have 4 items and pop out of stealth with your R, then you're going to delete everyone. Ashe and MF are likely to be solid picks just because of the consistent strength that they provide, while Sivir and Tristana are the two champs we are less confident in power-wise. Ashe is definitely weaker than in Season 16 League, as her Hawk shot only travels a very short distance, while her Q is not an attack speed steroid. So the kit is worse, but it's still Ashe in the fact that her early game is great and she has the utility from R, so we've got her in the A tier. Sivir Q in League Classic deals less damage if it travels through minions, so it makes the poke threat of Sivir way less threatening in lane. W is insanely bad early on, as it only bounces to 1 minion. Each time you put a point in W, you get an extra bounce, so the ability is just so much weaker until you hit the mid game. E also costs mana to use and refunds mana, so it's not entirely useful a lot of the time when you drop low on mana and then can't even use the spell to help refund any mana. And then to top it all off, the itemization for crit ADCs just feels bad, as BF Sword is 1550 gold, so it's so awkward completing your first item. You do come online pretty hard in the mid game with a few crit items, but the early game is such a pain that unless your team can pull through and allow you to scale, you're not really going to be able to impact the game as significantly as the OP tier ADCs. Tristana is kind of in a similar spot to Sivir, to where crit builds just take so long to come online and feels really awkward to build. Trinity Force and Blade of the Ruined King users feel so much better because of the fact that you don't need to wait for 1550 gold to actually purchase a component to your main damage item. Trist E also feels so bad compared to the current Trist E, as the one in League Classic deals a small amount of magic damage over time. You just don't have the same kind of burst potential early on in lane with League Classic Trist. She does scale pretty well with items, but it's just not reliable for you to actually get there. Heading down to support now, in the OP tier we have 2 champs being Blitzcrank and Janna. So with Blitz being the only hook support in League Classic, we think that just gives him a massive priority advantage. The value from Blitz shoots up since there's no Thresh, Nod, or Pike, and his ability to impact games through his hook is incredible. If you thought landing a hook in lane was impactful with the Season 16 version of Blitz, then wait until you try him in League Classic. The damage coming out of Blitz is pretty nuts, and landing a hook in lane feels way more rewarding. For Janna, this version of her is extremely OP, because it's the version where her E not only provides a disgusting shield, but it also grants an insane amount of AD. When you have your E maxed out, you are providing your ADC with 50 bonus AD when you throw your E on them, which is ludicrous value for the mid game that takes no skill at all. The Season 16 version of Janna provides 30 AD, so you literally just get 20 more AD from the spell in League Classic. Janna passive in League Classic also grants all of her allies bonus movement speed, so this is incredible value. And then you still have the same incredible peel strength that Janna has always provided with her Q and R being the same abilities, so we think that she'll have a great spot in the meta because the only melee engaged supports you can choose from are Alistar and Leona, and Janna hard counters both of them. Leona, having a very similar kit to what currently is on live servers, should be the best hard engaged support that you can play. If you want to play a mage support, then Fiddlesticks is one that has really stood out on the PvE so far. This version of Fiddle has the point and click E, which is a silence, and it bounces from target to target, so it offers some really nice poke in lane, and then the Q Fear is incredibly impactful as well. Teemo support is a really interesting one for League Classic because his shrooms last for 15 minutes when placed, and there are a lot less ways for enemies to easily spot them. Sweepers in League Classic only cover one small area that you drop it on, so the enemy isn't able to pop a sweeper and walk around and clear out all of your shrooms like they can in Season 16 League. With players less likely to be sweating on Mage's bot in League Classic, it should bring Teemo even more value because of his blind. In terms of melee supports, we think Leona and Blitz are going to be the best, while Alistar and Taric fall on the weaker side. With Alistar, you no longer have the stun from E, as his E is a heal, so you're lacking engage power relative to Season 16 Alistar. With current Alistar, his passive is the heal, so that fact that you need to spend mana on the heal with Alistar in League Classic, and you are missing the additional CC, just makes him a weaker champ overall. Taric especially is pretty lackluster in League Classic, as he doesn't have the same game-changing R like he does in Season 16 League. Taric R in League Classic is an aura that grants him bonus damage, so not nearly as impactful as the invulnerability from his Season 16 R. If you thought that Taric in the current state of League was boring to play, then this League Classic version of Taric is even more sleeper. We've seen it with old school RuneScape, we've seen it with Classic WoW, and now League Classic is about to be the next big thing. Opportunities like this come around once, and while everyone else is stuck trying to figure things out, you can start with all the answers thanks to our brand new Classic launch course, including a dedicated guide for every role with everything you need to know to stomp lanes, lane or dominate in the jungle, as well as must-watch videos on macro, trading, vision and ward placement, wave control, and even itemization, including all of the broken and forgotten strategies that 99% of players have no idea even exist. Check out the full course today and gain access to all of our other world-famous content using the exclusive link in the pinned comment or description below. So there you have it, everyone. That is an inside look at what we expect the meta to look like in League Classic when it hits live servers. Of course, take our rankings with a grain of salt, as this is entirely predictive and more so to point you in the right direction if you're unsure of what to try. So there are champs that will be placed too high or too low, but if League Classic does stick around and we end up making another one, it should be much more accurate. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.